Welcome, welcome. As we always like to start our time with lighting a candle if you have one around. If not, you can use my light. And then have a little bit of silence and to bring ourselves into the space this time, this gathering of souls. So as I said, it's so lovely to be here with you as we explore the Art of Spiritual Direction at Ghost Ranch program. Those of you who were here last week on the call about Journey will have heard my little brief history of Still Point. But for those who weren't, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about us. Still Point has been forming spiritual directors starting in Southern California 40 years ago. Today we're in our 40th year. It all began when a group of ecumenical friends who were committed members of their own churches were talking and lamenting about the lack of opportunity for the average seeker to explore a direct experience of the holy. And so they learned about the practice of spiritual direction or spiritual companionship, which exists in many religious traditions. And they wanted to find a way to bring programs that give that direct experience and help form people to help others have that direct experience. So they went to work to create those programs to deepen their own spiritual experience and then to form other spiritual companions. So after the program had been going in California for several years, Ghost Ranch in New Mexico, which happens to be right down the street from me, about 20 minutes away, wanted to offer a spiritual direction formation program at Ghost Ranch. And so instead of creating a program themselves, they decided to look for an already existing program to come and offer a residential component at Ghost Ranch. And they chose Still Point. So Still Point began offering our spiritual journey and our 2-year Art of Spiritual Direction programs in the high desert of New Mexico. And this will be our 15th year leading programs at Ghost Ranch. So I was in cohort 1, the first cohort at Ghost Ranch. And so it's really exciting every year to see another cohort come in. So let me turn it over to our program director, Ravi Verma, to tell you some about that program.
Thank you and welcome everyone. I also want to introduce our other colleague here, Stacy Parks. Stacy was in the 3rd group at Ghost Ranch, I believe, and has been teaching in the Journey program and in the Art of Spiritual Direction for many, many years. So you're getting a taste of those of us who will be involved in the Ghost Ranch program. I want to give a brief overview about this field of spiritual companionship. You know, if you're not familiar with Spiritual Directors International, I strongly recommend you go to that website. You'll get the expanse of where this field is and what's happening with it. And you know, it's like Chris was saying, it's in every religious tradition. My tradition of birth is Hinduism. And there you have the gurus And, that's what I came out of. And then you have Zen teachers, and you have shamans, and you have all kinds of different traditions which have their own ways of practicing this. And in the West, largely in the beginning, especially in the Christian tradition, was the purview of priests and some religious orders of nuns. But it's really shifted over the decades that now there are more and more lay people doing this kind of work. And also, spiritual direction has always been on the margins. It's never in the center of most spiritual communities. So our work is somewhat coming in as outsiders to do that. And now the whole field is shifting. We are learning from people who do this in different traditions. There are more younger people coming in, more BIPOC people coming in, more men coming in. It used to be traditionally a lot of women, mostly white men and white women who did this work. That's shifting. Now, different voices and different things are adding to the mix, and we learn from each other in this. So with that, and Still Point's very involved with the larger movement of Spiritual Directors International, and we learn and grow with them. Other thing I want to just say as a starting place is we call this the art of spiritual companionship, spiritual direction. This is not something that we can teach people how to do. It's a gift that comes from another source. It's a gift that's given to you, and what we do is provide a container where you can refine, uncover, discover more of your own way of doing this work. So it's like you're trying on this mantle as we go through this program. And at the end, I want to tell you something about the program, and I'll talk about the prerequisites for this to do that. How many of you, clearly you're here because you know about spiritual direction. How many of you here have a spiritual director? Okay. One of the things, requirements, and we'll get to that later, is if you go through the program, you have to have a spiritual director. So we took what we've learned in Southern California and adapted it to Ghost Ranch. But another big factor of Ghost Ranch is the landscape. The landscape there is a teacher of its own. Just being in that space, being in nature, and the ancient history of that place becomes a teacher. And we try and do our best to incorporate that into the work because the landscape demands it in some ways. And as you know, the Ghost Ranch is a residential program. And it's 4 weeks of meeting together. So you'll be with the same cohort. And the first 2 years are really about learning the art, and it's a lifelong learning of how to accompany others. So you practice that a lot. And you practice that with each other, with the staff person help, you get feedback. So you learn by doing. Our approach is very much experiential. There are some seminaries who offer that and have a different approach to it. We have some books and articles you get to read, but we really trust your experience. The other is we trust that you will learn from each other, that this journey is not meant to be a solitary journey. It's meant to be a communal journey. So as you do this together, you will hopefully learn from each other and become friends. Like Chris's group, who went through the first group 14 years ago, still several of them are in contact with each other, as is some of Stacy's group. somehow you become lifelong spiritual friends that, and we foster that connection. So the first 2 weeks are about learning the art, and typically in a day, each day will have a topic. And there's always spiritual practices included in this. We'll do some information sharing about the topic. We'll have some contemplative exercises you do around that topic to go deeper into your own experience. And typically in the afternoons, based on that topic, you start practicing spiritual companionship with each other. So from the very beginning, you are putting into practice how to do this work and how to uncover your style. We try and give space in there that you have some downtime, that you can enjoy Ghost Ranch and be with each other and whatever you need to do. But I also want to say that it is the formation program. So there's a lot more you have to work to do this. It's not completely a retreat experience in that sense. It's a formation time. That means being open to the shifts and changes that Spirit is doing in your life. How do you pay attention? And some of the topics one is really about listening. So much of this work is that kind of deep, holy listening to yourself, to the other. So we talk about that. We talk about things like your own operating image of the divine and your own experience of the divine. Someone said that as many individuals there are, that's how many ways are there to experience the divine and what images we carry with us. And we talk a lot about discernment, which is really how do you bring the divine into how you live your life. When you have both choices to make or you don't have choices to make, how do you perceive the movement of the divine in your life? So as we're talking about this, our program was founded by Christians, and that is our roots, but we also very much welcome people of all different traditions. And you don't have to agree with each other's stance or belief system, but we ask that you respect and be open to learning from each other in that. For example, my own tradition is a blend of Hinduism and Christianity in doing that. And I bring all of that to this work. So we've always had people of different slants of Christianity, but also of other traditions or no tradition who are welcome to come. Because we really believe the collective energy of us together is the biggest teacher. That Spirit moves within and between each of us to do that. So for each week, there'll be some books you have to read, some articles you have to read. But these are more for you. It is not going to be a book discussion or, you have to write a book report. It's more how it speaks to you and how that can be used in this work to do that. So it's not a scholarly way, it's more and we talk about how to read and what we expect. There are some very, very brief papers to write, but they're again so that you get to reflect on your own experience. It's not about you have to turn them in and you're graded. It's not about that. And we also encourage self-evaluation, and you'll have that. The other part is each of you will be part of a small group, what we call wisdom circles. And you'll have one of the staff people who's a mentor who will be leading that wisdom circle. And you will stay with that group throughout the program. So you do get a chance to get to know a smaller group more intimately to do that. And, the Wisdom Circles group sometimes deal with some of the readings and what came up in the program, but also do other things and are there to answer any questions. So anything sometimes comes up, that will be your first person go to do that. We also use a variety of different staff people, so you get to experience different styles so that there's no one way to do this work. And it's really expanding and shifting. In our programs, we use a lot where we can about music and art and eco-spirituality, because those are ways in which we expand and grow and learn. And there are people who practice this work using some of those disciplines as their primary way. We also do a lot of somatic work to listen to our bodies and try and integrate that in our program. So, we will have, while you do your self-evaluation, we'll also give you some feedback of what we see in your own development, what may be some edges that need to be looked at. The second part of the program, the learning about the art of spiritual companionship, is a lifelong journey. And you will, and I will, and we do constantly evolve in that practice. But we also shift the focus to what is happening to you and inside you as you do this work. How does yourself get affected when you sit with another? Because, I'm often blind to my own self. And someone I sit with will bring up something that may resonate with me or may trigger me or do that. That's what you take to what we call supervision, which is not about evaluating how you're doing, but gently exploring what is rising up in you as you sit with another, so that that doesn't affect how you're present to that person. We also, throughout the program, try and connect the inner and the outer. That our inward journey always takes us outside to be of service to others, to do that. And different people will have different ways and what that means to them, but it's a component we often refer to throughout the program to do that. So in the second part of the program, there'll be more about practicing this art, but also knowing yourself as you do this. Some of the topics there will be a little more beyond the basics. We talk about archetype work, we talk about shadow, talk about dreams, grief, sexuality. All those are topics. Again, we do some presentations, some readings, some contemplative exercise, then you practice around that work. And you'll have time at the end of this to ask questions about logistics and all that, trying to give you a bigger framework of this. I want to talk about the prerequisites, and then we'll open it up to your questions. And for some people, who you all are here because you have something inside you that says this is what you want to be doing. There are some people who come exploring whether this is what they want to be doing. So we have a journey program, which is an exploration about your own journey. There's some discernment work there, and it's a prerequisite to join this program. And this year it'll be offered at 2 different times at Ghost Ranch, and we'll give you those dates. But with some of you who've had experience in this kind of work, about living a contemplative life, about being with others informally or informally in groups, doing this, we have another entry point, which is called the 3-day orientation to spiritual companionship. but we'll interview you if we think that's could work for you. And that's being offered later this year, I think in September, I think. So
No,
that would be
August. It's in August.
August. And that would be another way, but you'll have to be interviewed to see if we think you have enough of the background and you don't need to the whole journey program, but are eligible for that. And if you think you are, please contact us and someone will call you and set up a time to talk. And then we'll explore which would be the best way for you to enter. And after the people who've done the journey program or the 3-day, you'll be invited to apply to the program. We ask for a reference and some brief essays. And typically there's an interview again to do that. If we've known you through the 3-day or something, we may not need much before you're admitted to the program. And different groups, I think the first group we had was the largest, but there have been groups of 7 to 10, 12. And it's typically held, if you've been to Ghost Ranch, at Casa del Sol. So we have some limitations of how many people we can fit to do that. So, Stacy, Chris, did I miss something in the big picture or that you'd add to this? Stacy, I want you to talk a little. Stacy's been a faculty member and a Wisdom Circle leader for many years. Just share a little of what you've noticed, what you think about the way we do things.
I really enjoyed the residential experience, being there full time with my cohort. It gives you time to get to know people, and we do really learn from each other. So I like that part about it. Working in the program as a mentor, so I head up a wisdom circle that meets once a month. And that's a good way, I think, to get to know people in a smaller group, but it's also a way to help you keep up with the readings and any of the papers. You meet in that group and then you share about, an article or a book maybe that we've asked you to read. And it gives that level of sort of accountability, and you can bounce ideas off each other. I think, sharing verbally just helps us process the information, and everyone has a different viewpoint sometimes about the readings. And so we learn from each other, helps us explore and kind of have that background knowledge then when we get to Ghost Ranch for the full week. And Robbie talked about, there's 4 weeks. So that's starts in November. So it would be November, then the following April, then October, and then March. So your wisdom circle would meet monthly between those gaps so that you stay connected, that you have a community to connect to and to discuss the readings, the papers, and your directees that you start working with fairly early in the program. And so you have that place to go and ask questions and share with the spiritual director and with the folks that are in your cohort in that small group of 3 or 4 people. So I really enjoy that part of the work, and I think that's a good way to get to know people. Good resources.
Thank you, Stacy, for reminding that soon in the first year, you'll be asked to meet with one person, and we guide you towards how to set up the meeting. If you have trouble finding someone in your community, we work with you on that. In the last 2 weeks, you'll be meeting with 2 people. And also we will assign, as part of the program, quote unquote supervisor that you'll be meeting with as well. And we talk about the process, about how that would work and what that would be like. So
I think Stacy brought up something important about the residential aspect. I know when I was looking for a spiritual direction program, I really wanted a program that had residential aspect, because it's hard. It's in the middle of life, stuff is going on, right? But you can if you take that 1 week away, you go very deep, very fast, and you bond really quickly. And that, for me, made it especially a powerful experience to do that residential aspect. So, and really the importance of the community, we can't stress that enough.
Yeah, and I think in the US, I think Still Point is the only completely residential program. There are some programs who have a week in the beginning and a week at the end where you meet together, but the rest is all online. And many programs are just online. And, so people come sometimes to us because they love Ghost Ranch. That place itself is a draw to people. So,
the other thing I wanted to mention about the 3-day versus the journey, I always say if you can do the full journey, do it. You won't be sorry. The 3-day, the curriculum is basically a condensed, intensive version of the Journey program, which has all the benefits and the drawbacks of an intensive program. Not a lot of time to process as you're going through, not as much time to form as close bonds. But it's a good option for a lot of people.
Yeah, and we found that, there's been more interest in the 3-day because this field of spiritual companionship is growing and people are learning about it. The other thing I would add as a last thing before we take your questions is I'm always humbled with the privilege of doing this work. To sit with someone when they open up deepest parts of themselves. And it's a mutual blessing to do this. I get enriched as much as hopefully they do by doing this work. The other part is in our world, which there's so much turmoil and so much going on. And we are entering into an era in the US, which is coming here, no matter where you are, it's going to be tumultuous. And so the work we do to bring that kind of grounding and help people navigate their own lives and what's going on in the world is, I think, a sacred call and very needed. It's time for questions, and Stacy is going to guide us as to help this time. So
Thank you, Ravi. We just want to take this time to allow you to ask any questions that you might have. You can do the little raise your hand button on your computer, or you can just wave at us. We have a small group. You can ask about the program. You can ask about the logistics. We just want to try to answer those if you have questions. And it looks like Cheryl has her hand up.
Hi, everybody. So I have some questions. It was my understanding that there is a 3-day orientation in June. It is on Zoom. It's the prerequisite for the Art of Spiritual Direction that supposedly should start around August, September of this year. And it's the Art of Spiritual Direction is also available all on Zoom, which those two components is what I'm interested in.
yeah,
So it sounds like that's the California program. And so that would not be the Ghost Ranch program, but that is offered and what we call the California program. So you could apply to that orientation, that 3-day orientation, and then apply to Art of Spiritual Direction in the California model, which would be either online or in person. But that model meets 1 day a month, as opposed to a full-time residential or week-long residential.
So I've been on Still Point's website quite frequently in the past several months, and I just didn't get that information. Is it Crystal Hart, the person I should speak to?
Yeah, you can talk to any of us. And let me try in the June program, in terms of timing, is because the California program starts in August. But we've had some people who are interested in the Ghost Ranch program and can't make the later date, they've attended the June program and then applied to the Ghost Ranch program.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
And the California program is a hybrid. There are some people online and some people in person. And so this was the first year we did that. So it's a misnomer to say it's all, for some people it's all online, but you're interacting with the people who are in person. It's one cohort to
Okay.
do that.
So who should I talk to or make contact with about the California program?
Yeah, I mean, Crystal's a good possibility. We have, let's see, we'll have another Zoom interest meeting. I can move here to make sure you get an announcement about the Zoom interest meeting for California.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I think Thomas had a program
Yes.
and then Carol.
Yeah, I'm in the same position that she is.
So my,
I'm doing this 3-day track June.
yeah,
But
me,
you said, then do you wait till after you finish that before you apply to the Art of Spiritual Direction? And that's when you send in all the other stuff. And then the program that starts in August, is that once a month or what is, that's once a month, okay.
Yes.
And is there some place to get dates for that?
It's once a month. We don't have firm dates for that program yet for each day.
Okay.
So I have information because I signed up and paid tuition already for June 6th, 7th, and 8th of this year.
Well,
No, I
those
have
dates we have, but
I have that. I'm talking
yeah, it
about
was-
August.
yeah,
Okay,
started,
okay.
in August, right?
sounds good.
So there was
Yeah.
somebody else who was interested in the California program.
Carol.
Make sure you get that interest.
there's 3 of us here that all got confused on the same thing because I'm interested in Goats Ranch. That's why I'm here. And I signed up for the June 6th, 7th, and 8th, thinking that I could do this and then possibly go. Is that, so that's okay. All right.
Yes.
All right. And
Yes.
then if I do that in June and then decide to do the California program, can I do that?
Yes.
Oh,
You
right,
can,
good.
you can apply, but typically people apply to one of those programs.
I understand.
It's a separate application track.
But I want to go through the orientation
Yes.
and then, okay, great. Okay, good. I'm already signed up, paid too for the June 6th, 7th, and 8th thing.
Okay.
Can I ask another question? Is Elizabeth going to be at Ghost Ranch?
Not currently. She will be at Ghost Ranch for our Eco Spiritual Direction program. But at the moment, we don't have firm staff for the different weeks.
Okay.
Where it will be for cohort 15 yet.
Bevy, will you be at Ghost Ranch?
I'll be for several of the weeks. Yes.
And how many people do you imagine Ghost Ranch if would in this cohort?
Well, we are hoping between 10 and 12, but it really depends because it's a big commitment and the expense of it. So, but we are hoping for that.
And typically an average of 10 is not a bad way to look at it.
Like the California program right now has 17. I think it's 9 online and 8 in person. So it's a little larger group.
And the in-person is, where's that going to be meeting at?
We are still working that out. We used to meet.
Los Angeles area, though. It's in the Los Angeles area.
Yeah, I'm in Pasadena, so that's okay. But you just don't know if it's going to be at a.
We're negotiating for space for next year.
Thanks.
It has been meeting at Echo Park.
Oh, that's good.
Some other questions, concerns that
Emily.
Thank you
Sedona?
guys so much for all this info. My question is, it sounds like the California group is going to be quite large. Have you had a group that big before? You have.
Well, this year,
well,
Right,
This is
'cause it's
this is the
new.
largest. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And
We've had about 13 people in person at times in California.
yeah, okay. And so I just want to make sure that my dates are correct. I think that I'm doing the spiritual journey. Woohoo!
Yay!
Yay! But I'm prayerful, hopeful that some of this will become clear which one. But I just want to confirm that for Ghost Ranch, we would be there for an entire week for each of those months, November, April, October, March.
You come in, the program starts on a Monday evening
Got it.
and it gets over on a Sunday morning.
Okay. It sounds like the opportunity for depth is really rich with in-person. And so I'm curious about that, and we'll keep exploring that. Thank you.
I have to say, there is a difference being in person. But like for COVID, during COVID, we had to be all online. And this year's experience of being online and in person, it really works both ways. It really depends on your own personality and what works best for you. But I know people who've done it online are doing it online, are getting what they need as well.
Can I ask a question? The California program, there's two different ones. The online program will be one set of people, and then the in-person will be another set, or they're all together?
They're all together. And we've been doing it this year, they're all together, and we found ways to mingle the groups, and it's working. So
Okay,
I
great.
think there are two others, Sarah and Sedona, both had questions.
Sarah?
I have a question. Is it when you're there for the week, is it completely kind of like turn off from the outside world as far as internet, or if you have an obligation once a week that you have to have a meeting online, is that allowed, or is it supposed to be like a disconnect?
We encourage you to disconnect, but there is internet and Wi-Fi. But as much as you can, it helps to be fully present during that time. If you had one meeting, if you checked ahead of time and got that cleared for the timing, you could probably make that work.
Yeah, and for several of us of staff having different responsibilities, we've had to do that at times too. So, yeah.
It used to be harder. When I went through the program, there really wasn't internet. And to even make a phone call, there was one spot where, if you held your phone in the right way, you could maybe get signal, but it's much easier now.
It's better now. Sedona, am I saying your
Yeah.
name right?
Yeah, it's
Did you have-
Sedona. Yes. I did wonder if there's any scholarships for this program.
There is a scholarship application process. We usually do offer scholarships, but we have to wait until we get all the scholarship applications and see what funds are available.
Okay. Yeah, so how I kind of came across this was basically the priest at my church is just saying there's just not enough priests anymore in the world, and people need direction. And so he was actually encouraging the congregation to seek laymen as spiritual directors. So I know that there's a website after, but and it sounds like you get to start becoming a spiritual director in the process. You have like a person. But is there any talk about like how I don't really want to see this as a business. I've been a life coach, and because it's a spiritual thing, but do you talk about how do you go forward after this? I mean, and I am a firm believer on people just find you. I know that happens too, but is there any talk about that in the program? about how you go about after?
Yes, there's several. Go ahead, Stacy.
I was just going to say, we did spend some time talking about, you know, how you find directees or how they find you. Currently, we have, you know, on our website as a Still Point graduate, you can put up a profile where people can, you know, read about you and see if that sounds like a good fit for them for spiritual direction, and then they can email you or call you to find out. So we do spend some time talking about that, yes, and about, you know, how much you charge after you graduate and the different activities that put you in touch with people that might be interested in direction.
We
Did
do
you wanna
talk
add
about,
something, Ron?
yeah. Some people, you know, set up websites, some have business cards, some do all kinds of things. Some do very little, they do more by networking. So we explore what is your way of putting yourself out there to be of service to others. So, you know, it'll be different for everyone, but we do that together so we learn how people are doing this. There's also the Spiritual Directors International has a seek and find guide where you can, once you become an intern, you get a free listing and you put a little profile and goes from there.
Okay, that's helpful. I know you said it's Christian based. I'm Catholic, so I just wondered. I guess I would have to investigate like with the archdiocese, but how do you relate with Catholics? I mean, anything to say on that?
You know, we've had sisters come into our program. We have 2 in California right now who their orders encouraged them to come to this program, and they looked at others and they came here. So we've had many Catholics come. We touch a little bit on Ignatian spirituality, but we have other people who want to go deeper, and there are people in our community who can meet with them separately to go deeper into Ignatian spirituality.
I'm not sure that term. What is that called?
Ignatian is, go ahead.
Ignatian spirituality of St. Ignatius of Loyola and St. Ignatius's spiritual exercises.
Okay, thank you.
And
Of course, St. Ignatius, the founder of the Jesuits.
yeah.
There's
Sarah,
just so much to learn in the Catholicism, so much. But I just wanted to see how it could relate. And I will talk to the Archbishop, Archdiocese, and get more insight on that.
Sarah, I'm glad you told us you're a rabbi. We have currently in the California program, we have another rabbi who's attending that. And, you know, when we did the interviews, I told them there is at least one now Jewish formation program, Kol Dadi, that has started this year. There used to be 4 or 5, but I think right now there's 1. But again, it's what speaks to you. We try and use resources from other religions. We honor each path. So, yeah.
We have someone from Ghost Ranch right now who comes out of the Jewish tradition. And we often do.
I have a question.
Sure.
So, I've been doing depth work for many, many years, and what I have found is that the psychological bleeds, I mean, whether it's mentioned or not, into the psycho-spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've been doing that, but I definitely want and need the spiritual, I call it mentorship, art of spiritual mentorship program. Anyway, the point is this, and you've just talked about it. I've both been regularly full-time employed, doing therapy type work, and also privately employed. And it's not easy to find people, or for people, except a lot word of mouth. So this is both, it's kind of a contradiction, a paradox. It's both a business and not a business.
Mhm.
And so what could you all share, the ones who have gone through Still Point? I mean, be realistic. Is this a way that a person can really engage, use their skills, who they are in this work? Because it's not always easy if you just go about it as psychotherapy, and spiritual assistance, whatever we call it, can be suspect. And so I need your input.
I can start,
Okay.
I think it's a very, very good question, because our responsibilities are to be of service, but also to take care of ourselves and our families, which means we have to talk about money and resourcing and time to do that. It was much more challenging in the past for people to make a living doing this. Now there are some people who do, but they also do it in different ways. They'll see people one-on-one. They may lead groups. They may lead retreats. They may join the staff of a formation program to do this. But many people will do this and have some other way to make a living. That's more common
I see.
to do that. In my many years of when I started this, I had to take on other jobs to just sustain myself.
Mhm.
So it only took, as my interest grew and I got more experience, I could do more. But it really is, I'd say some people don't need the money. And so this is something they just do because that's what they do.
Okay.
Some people will have other jobs and do this as well, and try and move more and more to wherever spirit is leading them.
Yeah.
I think that would be more of the norm. Anything from you, Chris and Stacy?
I agree.
I think that's an accurate way of putting it.
Mhm.
I know people who are making a living doing it, but it is hard, and it
Mhm.
takes a while to build up that
Yeah.
clientele.
Okay.
And I think you have to be very intentional about, looking for directees. I have a profile on Still Point's website. I have a profile on SDI. I do retreats with people. I attend retreats. You meet people out there in the world that, hey, could we connect and see if this is a good fit for direction? So yeah, you have to be intentional.
Yeah.
But there is also, for some people, it's hard because this is a way you're being of service to the world. But as Ravi said, we also have to take care of ourselves and our families, and that issue, though, around money is a deep spiritual one. There's a reason why Jesus talked about it a lot, because it comes up, and so it's a good thing to take to direction. How you feel about that.
I want to answer Emily's question, and then Carol, Emily, you asked about, as a massage therapist, how you can use that. I absolutely think somatic work and this goes together in that. But the people you see, it will always have to be with permission if they want to go that route. And if you start advertising it that way, you may get people who are interested in somatic work and spirituality together. But there are some people who are trying to do that, but that's what I think is shifting here. There is lots of pioneering work going on in this work. Like I said, some people who are artists, people bring their artwork and they use that as an entry into the spiritual companionship work. Do that. There are some people who go to homeless shelters and just sit with people and do it informally. Some are doing it with seniors. Some are doing it in prisons. So there's that is really growing. So yeah, Carol.
I'm still discerning, what program is best a fit for me. I am in California, so I have that option. If I've talked to people that have been in the Journey program that meets once a month, and that I hear it's pretty tight. You can't miss very many Saturdays or whatever, right? It's a really kind of a strict. Now, if you for whatever reason need to miss, or let's say I'm in person, if for some reason I'm traveling or something comes up, can I jump into the online and attend it that way? Am I making sense?
Yes, if you're in the California program, there are some people who can't always come for some reason to the in-person, but they can go online. We've
Got it.
had that happen.
Thank you.
Yeah. Who? Emily.
Okay, last question. So Still Point's been around. I mean, there will be more, so much more, but Still Point's been around, you said 40 years. And so I recently attended the Advent gathering that was really precious. And what I was really moved by was in the involvement of the Indigenous New Testament. And so I was curious, after 40 years of development, like the curriculum that we're going to be reading, and that we've put together is going to be quite diverse. Yes.
We are like most programs in spiritually based programs. We're doing our best to diversify our readings and our offerings. We certainly integrate a lot about power and privilege and race into our work. Our readings are getting more diverse. Are we fully there? No, it's a work in progress. And so we are hoping that as we continue doing that and we learn from each other, maybe you can recommend some resources. And so it's a growing edge for us too. I'd be the first to say we are not fully there yet, but we are in the midst of doing our best to do that.
I certainly appreciate the humility of that reflection. And I do have to just say it was precious to be a part of having that be a reading. So
we have used that. We have used the First Nations version as readings in the Ghost Ranch program as well. I love it. It really is special. But I want to just build a little bit on what Robbie said, though. It is not a 40-year-old curriculum. It is. The curriculum is constantly evolving. And no, we're not, I would agree, we have more work to do to get even more diverse, but we're very intentional about constantly evolving it, because I've had someone ask me that, have you changed your readings in the 40 years? And I say, yes, we have, as a matter of fact. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, no, I imagined it was like when you're a 40-year lifespan, there's a lot of development that goes within 40.
Yes.
It's also the times we are living in demand that we address topics that are current in today's world. So we are constantly looking at what, specifically from the lens of spiritual companions, how do we address this? How do we accompany others who might be challenged by what's going on? And finding ways to live with the differences. I'm sure there are political and other differences in this group right here, right now. And we are also clear that the issues of the world, sexism, homophobia, racism, anti-Semitism, are here as well. So we do our best to be conscious of that, to find ways to be in dialogue about that and respect each other. But those issues are not removed from what we do in this. They are part of it.
Yes. And I also wanted to say, for me, I find that we take very seriously what activist Grace Lee Boggs, also Gloria Anzaldúa, said, which is basically you transform yourself to transform the world. So we need to do that deep inner work. And by doing that, we then are able to help transform the world.
Thank you.
It does sound like, just to get okay, that many of you have been thinking about this and are really interested in pursuing where this might go, either here or another program. Is that accurate? Okay.
Are there any more questions before I give a short reading to close us?
I don't have a question, but I just have a comment because it made me kind of smile and laugh. I'm already having revelations, but just in terms of like, how do you work after this? And I've been around the healers 20 years at least, and I've met a few healers that never had a website, never had a business card, and they are full all the time. And how? It's all God. So that's
It's
my
all
comment.
God. Spirit.
Thank you for raising that. You know, the formation of spiritual companions is relatively recent, but over history, in every tradition, there have been people who have this gift and people have gone to them. In the Christian tradition, it's the Desert Fathers and Mothers. But in other traditions, this has been there all the time. This is not new. So there's more of spiritual companionship that happens informally rather than formally. Because, like in many BIPOC communities, it's the elders in the community who serve that function. So we build on those traditions and what our ancestors have done in this work.
I have a question more about timeline because, I have to figure out my life around whether I can make it or not. And that may not be till September or whatever. So I just wanted to know kind of a timeline of when we need to apply by. And
For the Ghost Ranch program or the California program?
the Ghost Ranch.
Ghost Ranch program, the application deadlines are in August because the 3-day is in August. So we make decisions fairly quickly after that, but that's when the applications are required to be in.
And you said the 3-day is Labor Day weekend?
No, the 3-day,
Okay.
3-day Ghost Ranch, the 3-day programs, the one in June and the one in August, the curriculum is the same.
Okay.
We divide them up only because the majority of people in the June will be looking to move to the California online program, and the majority of people and the people in August are looking to move into the Ghost Ranch program. It's August 8th through 10.
Okay.
Is the 3-day for Ghost Ranch.
And when the applications due for the California program?
I don't have that off the top. Do you know what that is, Robbie?
It'll be late July, middle of July, I believe. After the 3 days done.
3 days done in June.
June, so it would be the beginning of July, somewhere in July.
Yeah.
Because people will be interviewed and it takes a little time. And, if you are interested in the 3-day, please write to us or to Crystal or whichever email you have so that we can set up a time to talk to you to see if
which one's right for you. Yes.
Which one's right for you.
I signed up for the 3-day in November, at the end of November. I haven't had anybody, I guess Crystal reached out, but I haven't had anybody say, oh, I got to set up an appointment with you.
You don't necessarily, depending on what was in the email, she may or may not have needed to talk to you in person.
Okay.
And, we know, I know your background and what you've done, so.
Thank you.
Well, let me just close us with a couple of verses from John O'Donohue. Though your destination is not yet clear, you can trust the promise of this opening. Unfurl yourself into the grace of beginning that is at one with your life's desire. Awaken your spirit to adventure. Hold nothing back. Learn to find ease in risk. Soon you will be at home in a new rhythm, for your soul senses the world that awaits you.
That's beautiful. Where is that from?
Blessing for a New Beginning. Thank you all. And if you have any